Welcome back. Women have continued to break the glass ceiling in recent years and proven to do even better than what a man can do. The same can be said about women in nuclear. On this segment where we focus on women in nuclear, we speak to Annah Indetie, a research officer at the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization. She's not only a woman who loves animals and plants, but one who is seasoned at it. She has found a way to incorporate the nuclear energy into that and has plenty of admirable works to show. But before we get to that, let's first speak to her, introduce her. Of course, she's our guest on this episode, but we are guests at her Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization Center in Lanet, Nakuru County. Welcome on board and thank you for making time for us.
Thank you so much. I'm happy that you came and you are welcome as well. As you said, my name is Annah Indetie. I work here and for a long time. I've worked here from 2001 until today.
Yes.
From 1983 until today. Yes.
Let me start with what many might consider a simple question. Of all fields, what inspired you to work in this particular field, which is science, and at times work alongside your colleagues and counterparts from the nuclear sector?
My love for cows actually was my biggest inspiration. Where I come from, cows don't produce much, and so I really wanted to get into this field so that I can make the farmers increase milk and meat production so that they can make a profit in this enterprise.
Yes. That earlier when we had a chat, you said that the love or the decision to follow a career path that leads to science came when you were just young while still at school.
Yeah, when I was in primary school.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's speak about that, your education and career journey, and how you think that those two have played a part to where you are currently.
I was in a school in Nakuru High where they were keeping livestock, dairy cows. And occasionally we would go and watch, and that made me choose to go to a college, a certificate college, I hit in Nyahururu, where I got a certificate in animal health. And that's not what I really wanted from the word go. I wanted to go higher. One point, I wrote a paper and I wanted to go and present in a scientific forum. But I was told my qualification does not allow me. I cannot talk to scientists. So that motivated more to go into more training and more research on livestock, particularly on dairy farming.
Then from there, let's speak about how now you've done researches, how you've incorporated nuclear energy, and how your career journey has been so far.
My career journey started when I was employed here. I found researchers, and I was admiring them, and I had a dream that one day I'll also be a scientist. I'll research and go and present a paper in a scientific forum to make many farmers know how to improve their production. So I would watch scientists. At that time I was working on the bench, working for them, but also monitoring what they were doing. And some were kind enough, they started mentoring me, but my certificate was limiting. So I chose to go for further studies, Mombasa Polytechnic, 1986. I left with an ordinary diploma. I still was not qualified to talk to scientists, proper scientists, renowned scientists. I went to Kenya Polytechnic, 1994, left with a higher diploma. At that point, I wrote a paper to South African conference. It was accepted, but I did not get funding, given that I was still not a scientist. So I wrote to South Africans and I told them, okay, you have accepted my paper, but I cannot come. I can't be funded. So they said, okay, we are funding you 5 days. Let your organization give you 2 days. So now my organization were gracious enough and they gave me 2 days, and I went to the first scientific forum in South Africa, where I saw professors presenting really hard science. It inspired me to continue now working hard so that I can reach them or even surpass them. So I continued like that. When I came from South Africa, my colleague, whom I was working under, landed a project with IAEA. So I was on the bench doing the analysis of the hormone called progesterone, and I was using iodine 125. Then I said, he is not interested in using this data. Why can't I write something and then get a certificate out of it? So I went and registered in Kenyatta University and got a master's using progesterone hormone to detect reproductive deficiency among dairy cows. I went and presented many papers. I went to many countries. When I went to Egypt, I saw how they were doing postpartum feeding, because the Kenyan dairy cows were having a problem. They were taking long after calving. So when I went to Egypt, I studied there 3 months. Then I came back and said, okay, let me formulate feed for postpartum feeding. You cannot feed an in-calf cow the way you feed a dry cow, because when it's in-calf is when it's now formulating milk, and it's going to prepare for the next pregnancy. So after that, I entered into forage, because I discovered forage was an issue. So I entered into forage, and I isolated bracharia, local bracharia. So I started from there. I took to IAEA, they irradiated using cobalt 60. I came, planted, because cobalt 60 creates diversity. So we were selecting according to what we desired. We selected, we established. After reaching the right level, we gave to Kenya KEFIS. And then it went for NPT, National Performance Trials. And as we speak now, the seeds are under DUS. So we're expecting the results. But we took 3 varieties: Lanet, Busia, Bracharia Lanet, Bracharia Kisii, and Bracharia Lanet, and Bracharia Busia. So we are still now waiting for results from KEFIS, but we are hoping for the best. And then when we did that, I sat down and said, every farmer is feeding grass as grass, which gets worse with the time. The protein level goes down. So how do I preserve this grass that all the components are preserved? So I decided to formulate this grass, include mineral premix into it, and include protein source into it, and preserve it as a feed block. So we have fed those feed blocks. We have fed grass alone. We have fed feed blocks, and we have the results. The feed block is outperforming the grass fed alone. And when you leave farmers to feed grass alone and dairy meal alone, because of the nature of the animal, when it turns around, most of the protein source drops on the ground. So it's not beneficial to the cow. But when now you fix it, it eats it as one piece. So the results we have is that the feed block has increased milk production. It has reduced calving intervals among the farmers that have used them. Yes.
Of course, it has been a long journey whose dream was actually born back then, decades ago, when you were in primary school. There are a number of challenges that you've been able to face and overcome. But before we get to that, let me switch to a whole topic altogether, and that which is of less female representation in the technical sector at large. Actually, as at July 2020, according to the World Bank, the proportion of women who've taken up technical roles is at 13% in the country. A low figure that was maybe, according to you, years back, lower than it is right now. Why do you think that is the case, Anna?
That could be the case, one, because of awareness. Nuclear energy, I don't think they have really created much awareness. And for me, I think they should the awareness should be created in schools. right away from primary. Because for a woman to go into nuclear science, they must pass in science subjects. And then they must be told that nuclear is not about bombs. We have peaceful application of nuclear science, the one I'm using now. There's culture, again. It has been from the past that men are the ones to go out or even sleep out and not women. So it becomes challenging for a woman in nuclear science to say that I have gone even to Vienna, whichever country, because of the nature of the project I'm running. You find that they are meeting some setbacks. So, and ladies sometimes, for the sake of the family, they give up.
Yeah.
So they have to be encouraged. And even their husbands can also be involved, even if they are not in that field. But when there is a conference, the awareness should also be created even to the husbands to allow the women. Also the workload involved, especially if you are running a project, it is too tough. Like me, I'm dealing with farmers. I have to run to the farmers, get to know their problems. I come and make a feedback based on what they are telling me and the stage of pregnancy of their cows. I have to follow up and know that actually they are feeding the right way. They are not feeding all the herd, but only the selected herd that are in calf. And then I come back and start preparing reports. So you find that some ladies in the process, they say this is too much. But they don't look at the benefit, the long-term benefit for them. Because this project, it allows you to train, even to nurture people at your place of work, to put replacement in place. And also they give equipment and reagents you want. Any science you want, you will do it, regardless of whether you have money or not, because they will supply you with the reagents. So it is a way to go. Nuclear science is the way to go. And I really hope that the ladies are hearing this and they'll really apply for these positions and projects.
Yeah. Yes. We shall talk about sending the elevator back down and your role in it much later. But have you at times fallen victim to the law figures? Have you maybe experienced a situation where you are the only woman or just one in a few at a meeting that is meant to discuss science, to discuss nuclear, to discuss technical activities? And what was your experience?
Yeah, I've been to conferences where mostly men are more than ladies. And this is the reason why it falls back to women. Most women don't like science. And they don't have awareness. They are not aware of what science can bring. And again, the ladies are so much attached to the family. You find that those ones with small kids, they will not come to the conference. They'll forfeit that one until their kids are able to be left with the maid or be taken to some attendance somewhere. So that has been the case. But I think if awareness is really strengthened and all the sexes, all the gender are informed, then the husbands will let their wives go to conferences and even write projects and leave them and go and work on the projects even on the computer in the house, because they have already seen the benefit of this thing to the family. Yes.
Over the course of your career, have you witnessed changes, and actually in the organization that you work, which you've seen launch more women into leadership positions? And maybe if you've seen any, can you just briefly describe them?
Yes, I have seen quite a lot recently. Like KALRO, my organization, it has now put many women in leadership positions as institute directors, as center directors, as deputy director. So I have actually witnessed a lot of changes and acceptance of women, unlike when I was employed. So those changes are there. And then KALRO has an aspect of gender streaming. So they actually listen to ladies and they try to incorporate ladies in every policy making forums.
Indeed.
Yes.
To my penultimate question, what would you tell someone, just a young girl maybe, a young boy watching from a remote village in Kakamega, from a remote one in Homa Bay, Vihiga, watching you and they say, one day I'd like to be Annah Indetie, but I don't know how I'll get there. What will you tell them? And do you think that advancing their careers, especially in nuclear industry, is the right way to go?
Yes, I will tell them to work hard and accept science subjects in school, right away from primary, secondary, even the university. For them to join science, whichever field of science, they must have passed. They have to endeavor to achieve. They work hard. There's nothing comes on a silver platter. I have narrated my story on how I started at certificate level. But now I am almost there, at the top of the education pillar. So it does not matter how they start, but let them have science at the back of their mind, and they work hard for it. It's not easy, but they will see the results. And if they want to write anything about nuclear science, any project on nuclear science, they can easily go to KNEB and they'll find the CEO. They can call, they have their website. They can call me, I will help them, even on how to write proposals. And even the CEO, KNEB, will help them. We are willing to incorporate more in science because nuclear science is the way to go. Look at the population of Kenya, how it's growing. We'll need more food. And this conventional breeding will not give us food on the table and money in the pocket. We need to go nuclear, where we are going to increase harvest, where we are going to increase meat and milk for our children so that we can be able to educate them and feed them as well. So nuclear science is the way to go, but it has to start from the primary level. And then you build onto it. You might not make it to university straight, but you can go slowly by osmosis the way I went, and you'll be there. So I really hope that the message has reached home and it will be appreciated. And I hope God will guide them when in their studies so that they do the right choice. Yeah.
Switching gears, it is time for the Did You Know segment, and today we compare the maintenance of nuclear power plants and other plants. Did you know that nuclear power plants require less maintenance, unlike natural gas and coal plants, which require routine maintenance and refueling? Nuclear power plants are designed to operate for longer stretches before refueling, which is typically done after every 1.5 to 2 years. Renewable plants, on the other hand, are considered intermittent or variable sources and are mostly limited by a lack of fuel, and as a result need a backup power source. Did you know that? I bet you did not. Did you also know or not know that nuclear electricity can determine the fate of small and medium-sized enterprises in any economy? On our My View segment, we look at another winning essay that discusses the correlation of SMEs and nuclear power.
Hello, my name is James Kipkemei, a student at Olmoran Secondary School in Laikipia County and the first runners-up in the 2020 NUPEA essay contest at secondary school level. I believe that nuclear electricity generation will greatly contribute to economic development in the country. Here's why. Small and medium-sized enterprises in the county are choking due to the current high cost of electricity in the country, occasioned by the disparity in the supply and demand for power. Once nuclear electricity is injected into the grid, the power supply in the country will match the demand, leading to a significant reduction in the cost of power in the country and ultimately promote the growth of SMEs locally. These SMEs are the backbone of our economy, and with vibrant SMEs, the economy will substantially grow.
And finally, in our IAEA video of the day, we relive the Chernobyl disaster and its impact to date.
This week marks 35 years since the Chernobyl nuclear accident. The accident was the most severe in the history of nuclear power and remains a challenge for the region.
35 years after the accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, the IAEA is still here, working side by side with our Ukrainian counterparts. As you can see behind me, the new safe containment, a great feat of modern engineering, has been completed, and the interim spent fuel storage facility is also coming in line. So here on the site, the IAEA, together with international partners like the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development is going to continue providing this indispensable support.
The accident was also a turning point in history. It marked the beginning of open international cooperation in the nuclear area. In 1986 and in the years since, world governments came together at the International Atomic Energy Agency headquarters in Vienna, crossing political divides to learn from the accident, to plan for its containment, and to stop it from happening again. Over the last 3.5 decades, agency scientists and staff have repeatedly visited the region to assess the environmental situation while advising on remediation and providing training in radiological monitoring to local experts. Aside from the international cleanup effort, the accident also led to improved global cooperation in nuclear safety. This is even more important today as nuclear energy gains prominence as part of the low-carbon energy mix in the fight against climate change.
We're also working in terms of the future here in the Ukraine with the integration of more nuclear power plants and units into an already pretty decarbonized economy. The Ukraine has reached a record of 67% electricity from nuclear source, which is extremely encouraging, where we are together tackling the big challenge of climate change and global warming.
Down but not out, a story of resilience, hope and life. On that note, it is time to call it a wrap on our 4th episode. Thank you for watching, and remember, so much is still in store for you. To keep the conversation going, you can always access our various social media platforms, that is TV47 Kenya on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Meanwhile, this episode has been powered by the Nuclear Power and Energy Agency. Till next time.